Did people go to the masjid of Ibn Abbas yet? Oh, mashallah. Yeah, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu. He's the only person, because he was born during the drought, during the time when they had the sanctions on the Prophet ﷺ, so that they didn't have any dates. They were eating leaves of trees at the time. So when he was born, they brought him to the Prophet ﷺ, and he didn't have anything to give the tahniq. So he gave them the, the tahniq is when you take dates and put it in the mouth of the child. You mix it with the spittle, put it in the mouth of the child. So he did it with his own spittle. And Mujahid, who was his student, he said, he is the only person that I know of that his tahniq was solely with the spittle of the Prophet ﷺ. And he made the Prophet very happy, because it was a difficult time for the Prophet. So when he was born, because it was his uncle and his aunt's child, Al-Abbas and Fadl, Lubaba. And best position is that they were Muslims, even though Abbas hid his Islam for strategic reasons. But Ibn Abbas, he served the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ died, he was probably 13. I mean, there's a riwayah that he was 10. But he soon, in his teens, became central to Sayyidina Umar's majlis. And a lot of the older people from Badr and things, initially that bothered them, because he was very young. He's like 16 years old, and he's in the majlis of Sayyidina Umar. And Sayyidina Umar used to test them and ask them questions, and they couldn't answer. And then he would ask Ibn Abbas, and he would give the right answer. And he said, that's why he's here. So he is an amazing person. He fought at Constantinia, in Constantinople. He was there with Yazid's army when they went, with Ibn Umar and others, because the Prophet said that أول جيش يغزو قسطنطينية أو بلاد قيصر مغفور له. The army that first goes to Constantinople will be forgiven for their sins. And so he wanted to be in that. And he also fought in Tunisia. I mean, he's amazing that so he wasn't just a scholar, he was out there. He was in Egypt, he was in Iraq. He was an amazing man, really stunning. And he was very successful in the world. He became very wealthy. He dressed in very fine clothes. He was noted for his majlis. They said his majlis was a majlis that had poetry and fiqh and Arabic and tafsir, everything. And he was even though all the poets were there, he was the one that knew the most. In tafsir, he's the basis of tafsir, really. I mean, Ibn Abbas, the Prophet called him Tarjuman al-Quran. He was called Tarjuman al-Quran, the interpreter of the Quran. And it came from a dua that the Prophet ﷺ said, فَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ وَعَلِّمْهُ التَّأْوِيلِ. Give him knowledge of this religion and teach him how to interpret. So that's a dua the Prophet gave for him, and it was answered. He also lost his eyesight at the end of his life. He got cataracts, and they used to have a treatment for cataracts where they would actually scrape and then they didn't allow them they couldn't go into sajda for about 2 weeks, probably for just the pressure or something. He didn't want to do that because he said he couldn't go without making sajda for 2 weeks. It's just too difficult. Really stunning person. But this is where he died, and he's buried here, and very beloved to the Prophet ﷺ. His aunt is Maymuna, who the Prophet married outside of Mecca when he came to make the Umrah, because Maymuna was the sister of Lubaba, who's his mother. And so he used to be able to go in and out of the Prophet ﷺ's house, and he would spend time with his aunt. And so he lived with the Prophet intimately. And when the other kids used to play, they would tell him, come and play with us. And he would say, no, 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 I want to get as much knowledge from these men because they're going to die, and then people will look to us. And they said, no, 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 there's plenty of scholars. And the kids said that they realized later that Ibn Abbas, because everybody began to go to him for knowledge, even the older ones. So Allah gave him something from early on. And he's a really amazing man and beloved of the Prophet ﷺ. Hibbuhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakumullah khair.